This is continuous coverage.
Continuous coverage.
In the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Hidden Killers podcast.
Thanks for joining us. We're up to segment number 3 now in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell here on the 24th of April of 2023. Let's go to the courtroom.
All right, that concludes the lunch break. The court would note the jurors are all present and accounted for. The state is conducting direct examination of FBI agent Heidemann. Ms. Blake, if you'd like to continue with your direct at this time, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Heidemann, as part of your responsibilities, were you also asked to look specifically for evidence of wedding planning?
Yes, I was.
And again, did you review phone data?
Yes,
Did you review data recovered from search warrants
I did.
and responsive documents?
Yes,
Did you discuss the case with other investigators,
yes,
both special agents and detectives?
yes,
Did you also read reports of interviews?
I did.
And in preparation of your testimony today, did you create a PowerPoint exhibit?
I did.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask that both the witness, the court, and the witness be handed what's been marked as State's Exhibit 185. Similar to the other ones, these are pages that are part of a PowerPoint, but for courtesy of the court, counsel, and the witness, we printed out the pages associated with that PowerPoint.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake.
Thank you, sir.
And if you would look through those pages you've been handed.
Okay,
Do those appear to be an accurate representation of the PowerPoint you created?
they are.
And do those contain information that you learned through your part of this investigation?
Yes,
Would that aid in the presentation of your testimony today?
it would.
And is this a summary of various documents and information you obtained?
Yes,
Your Honor, I would ask for the admission of this exhibit.
Any objection from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We believe that pages 2 and 3 of this exhibit are irrelevant and have nothing to do with this case. We believe that page 4 contains 404B evidence. We believe that those are all the objections that we have.
All right, let's take those individually then. There's first an objection lodged on relevance grounds for pages 2 and 3. Would you like to address that, Ms. Blake?
Yes, Your Honor. And if I may ask some questions of the witness in aid of that.
And before publishing them, but if you'd make reference also to make sure we're tracking the same page, all of us, meaning you and defense counsel, because there are page numbers.
And the one that I'm looking at would be the one, without getting into what the slide contains too much, would be the 2 documents.
Okay.
Is that the one counsel's referencing
Yes.
with regards to page 2?
Yes.
All right.
Ms. Heidemann, did you review documents recovered from the Lori for Style at iCloud.com?
I did.
Were there some documents that were recovered in addition to messages and other information?
Yes,
And looking at page 2, without describing what's on it, is that one of the documents that was recovered from the Lori for Style at iCloud.com review?
it was.
And then similarly with page 3, was that document also recovered from the Lori for Style
It
at
was.
iCloud? And it was?
Yes.
Your Honor, I think given the fact that these were discovered in the Lori for Style iCloud, which has already been submitted to the court, that account and the documents retrieved from that and the information. I believe they're already in evidence. So with that, I'd ask to be able to admit it because they've already been admitted, and I think we could get to the relevance argument when we start to discuss that, unless the court wants me to go into more detail now.
I think we need to determine before it's admitted whether or not the relevance objection would be sustained. So now that I've looked at it and reviewed it, Mr. Thomas, do you have any further objection as to the relevance on those first 2 pages?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know if these were to Lori Vallow or from Lori Vallow. And I think it would be significant to know that. And I'm again objecting to the relevancy. I don't think it has anything to do. I'm just going to, yeah.
The question I have looking at them, Ms. Blake, on pages 2 and 3, I think given the theory of the case of the state, there is relevance here and would overrule an objection just based on relevance looking at the content. The question I would have then is whether this is, what is the source of this information? I mean, I don't know that this is actually information that was obtained and gathered by the investigator here directly from an account of the defendant or a co-conspirator alleged, or whether or not this was actually the information that was located in this account, the iCloud account. I don't know if I made that clear or not.
If I can ask some additional questions, I may be able to clear that up.
So a foundational concern is what I have.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
With regard to those 2 documents, I believe you already indicated they were located in the Lori for Style at iCloud.com, the responsive documents for that account.
Correct.
Were you able to tell where they were located, if they were sent to Ms. Vallow or if she sent them out?
If I recall, they were just saved as documents in the account without any identifiers.
But they were saved in the account of Lori for Style at iCloud.com?
Correct.
And Your Honor, again, I think with that, the Lori for Style at iCloud.com, those responsive documents and the data has already been admitted into evidence. So these are already in evidence.
Okay, and with that explanation also, I just was concerned about foundation, whether this was information that was extrinsically brought in through the investigator or whether it was actually in that account. So I'll overrule the objection as to relevance, and that satisfies my foundational concerns. So pages 2 and 3, the objection's overruled. So then there was another objection on page,
I believe it's page 4, and just to be clear, is that regarding the Google searches, so that we're looking at the same page?
there was a 404B objection. Would you?
I think that was on page 5.
Oh, on page 5.
Oh, was it page 5? Okay. I was looking at page 4.
All right, the court's reviewed the objection as it relates to page 5 and references Arizona. The court would note that previously I've made a determination that 404B evidence would be allowed in this case based on a ruling made in February. The jury will be further instructed on the issue of how to consider that evidence at the time of deliberations. So for that reason, the objection as to the 404B lodged as to page 5 is overruled, and that page can also be admitted as part of the exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And, Your Honor, Exhibit 185 is admitted then?
So with that, yes, then Exhibit 185 is admitted.
And I would request permission to publish the PowerPoint presentation. Again, I have a jump drive that has been marked States Exhibit 185 that will be submitted to the court.
Okay, so the exhibit will actually be the PowerPoint file that's located on that jump drive. The court has a courtesy copy, and with that, you can publish from the PowerPoint, Ms. Blake.
Ms. Heidemann, if we look at this slide here, can you explain or can you tell me what 2 documents were located in the Lori for Style iCloud that drew your attention?
Two documents, one titled Seven Archangels and the second one Presiding Council of Archangels.
And in looking at this first document, the Seven Archangels, what was it about this document that drew your attention?
Initially, what drew my attention are the references to Raphael and James, or James the Just, which we saw Chad refer to himself frequently by those aliases.
And was there anything else that caught your attention?
To the presence of the day Tuesday, as well as a crystal affinity of malachite.
And we've talked a little bit about malachite before. What was it about Tuesday that drew your attention?
Tuesday, in relation to Raphael and James, or Chad, stood out because Chad and Lori ended up getting married on a Tuesday.
And if we turn to that second document, the Presiding Council of Archangels, what was it about that document that stood out?
It contained very similar names, James and Raphael, along with new names, Elena and Lily, and then the combination of both together.
And what was the significance of Elena and Lily?
Those names appeared in context with Lori in text messages and I believe emails in the iCloud account.
And then when we look at the Raphael and Lily together, what did you notice?
Similarities with the date of Tuesday and the color of green.
And looking at this next slide, and we had previously talked about some Google searches for malachite, correct?
Yes.
And those began, when did you locate the first searches for malachite?
I believe Chad's first search for malachite was in March of 2018, and then not again until May of 2019 when it appears in Chad and Lori's Google search history.
And in the Google searches that are up right now, do you know who had Googled those?
Well, they appear in the chad.daybell@gmail.com search history.
So they were Googled from that account at least?
Correct.
And what about this next one that appears?
That appeared in the lollytimeforever@gmail.com search history.
And what date was that searched?
That would have been, May 7th, 2019.
And it has a timestamp there. Do you know what time that is in?
That's an UTC time.
So it may need to be adjusted depending on the location of the user?
Correct.
Did you discover attempts to purchase some wedding rings?
I did.
And when was the first attempt that you located?
The first attempt I located was on August 14th of 2019, in which Lori purchased 2 glow-in-the-dark malachite inlay titanium rings from an Etsy site and provided a shipping address to 5531 South 4 Peaks Place in Chandler, Arizona.
And that address that appears in there, that 5531 South 4 Peaks Place, do you know who that address was associated with?
With Lori Vallow.
And before we talked about some searches done in May of 2019, do you know, was Charles Vallow alive at that time?
For the searches, yes.
And was Tammy Daybell alive in May of 2019?
Yes.
And then on this August 14th date, do you know if Charles Vallow was still alive?
He was not.
What about Tammy Daybell?
She was.
And we talked about the UTC time zone. Do you know where that time zone would be?
It's kind of just a standard, like a 0 time frame.
And then it's adjusted depending on your location to the different time zones?
Correct, yes.
And then did you find another attempt to purchase wedding rings?
Yes.
And when was that?
On August 25th, 2019, Lori attempted to purchase 2 custom titanium rings with malachite stone inlays in size 4.25 and 11.5 from Revolution Jewelry Designs, with an express insured shipping to 565 Pioneer Road, apartment 175 in Rexburg, Idaho.
And did that transaction go through?
No, that transaction, the card was declined and the order was canceled.
And when we talk about that 565 Pioneer Road, number 175, do you know who that address was associated with?
With Lori Vallow.
Did you learn whether or not there was ever a successful purchase of wedding rings?
There were.
And do you know when that was?
On October 2nd, 2019.
And on this, we see a purchase for 2 different rings. Did you focus in on one of these rings?
We did on the second ring purchase.
And why did you end up focusing in on that one?
When we put the description of that ring into Amazon, that was the image that appeared, which also appears in their wedding photos. It's the ring is similar in style to their wedding photos.
And when you talk about similar in style to the wedding photos, specifically, was it Chad or Lori that the ring appeared to match?
Lori's.
And do you know what Amazon account this was purchased through?
Charles Vallow's.
Was Charles Vallow still alive on October 2nd of 2019?
He was not.
Was there another ring purchased that day?
Yes, there was.
And do you know where that was purchased from?
That was purchased through Roy Rose Jewelry on the again through the Charles Vallow's Amazon account.
And what did this appear to be, a man or a woman's ring?
Based on the size, it was more than likely a man's ring.
And what size was ordered initially?
11.5.
Did you notice another transaction in regard to that ring?
Yes, that initial ring was returned and eventually repurchased as a size 11.
Do you know approximately when that occurred?
On October 4th, 2019.
Do you know the date that Tammy Daybell was pronounced dead?
She was pronounced dead on October 19th, 2019.
Was there an additional transaction with regard to that ring that occurred after Tammy was dead?
Yes, the size 11 ring was returned again and repurchased as a size 10, but that one what we believe was kept.
There was you located no evidence that that size 10 was returned?
Correct.
Did you notice anything else about this specific ring?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
When looking at the photo on Amazon, did you notice anything with regard to that?
Yes, similarly to the prior ring, when we input the Thorsten Mahai malachite stone inlay into Amazon, the image that resulted is the image purchased there, which again appeared to be similar to Chad's ring in their wedding photos.
And is this the wedding photo that you were referencing?
It is.
And so when you looked at this photo, you compared it to those rings to determine that they appeared similar?
Correct.
Did you also look at a text message that had been sent?
I did.
And looking at the slide, is that one of the text messages that you'd focused in on?
Yes.
And I say text, but it says SMS message. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you determine most likely who that message was sent from and to whom?
Again, based on phone attribution, we believe the 515 Bobby number to be attributed to Chad.
And who would the message have been sent to most likely?
This was in the Lolly Time account, so to Lori Vallow.
And what was the date of that message?
July 13th, 2019.
Did anything stick out to you about that date?
This would have been 2 days after the death of Charles Vallow.
And could you read into the record the content of that text or that SMS message?
Yes. Concerning the 2 weeks, BYU Idaho's graduation is July 23rd. Adam is getting his bachelor's and Leah and Joe are getting their associates. They are all walking in the same commencement ceremony. I feel she will be gone by then, but I will still have that hoopla to deal with because a lot of my and Adam's family are coming and will stay for July 24th. So I believe that's why the Lord hinted, I might not get to be with you until that is over. Please ask about that.
The individuals mentioned in that message, do you know who they are?
Yes, Adam and Joe are Chad Daybell's sons-in-law, and Leah is his daughter.
And there's some writing there at the bottom of the screen. Were those things that stood out to you about the text?
Yes.
Did you also review some texts between Chad and Lori from July 22nd of 2019?
I did.
And on this slide, you have regarding quiet and the plan. When you're referencing the plan, was this in relation to a specific plan?
It appears to, with the totality of everything, to be the plan to be in Hawaii together.
And to ultimately be together?
Correct.
And in looking at that text exchange, could you indicate who the text originates from and to whom, or who we believe that it originates from and to whom, and the content of the message?
Yes. Similarly to the prior text, the iCloud shows that it originated, or it's in this situation, a to-from situation from the 515 Bubby number previously attributed to Chad to Lori.
And what is the content of that first message?
Love you, going with Garth in an hour to see Other Side of Heaven too. Missing you desperately, but so excited to be with you.
And is there a response from Lori?
Yes, Lori responded, you will love it.
And then the next message?
The 515 Bubby number responds, not as much as I love you.
And does Lori respond to that?
She does. She says, I love you. You will enjoy the scenery. It looks like Kauai a lot.
And is there another message then from Lori?
Hopefully we will be there someday soon together.
And what is the number associated with Chad's response?
That is the plan and my greatest desire.
Did you then locate anything regarding Lori requesting a quote for a wedding?
I did.
And when was that quote requested?
On October 30th, 2019.
And where were they requesting to hold the wedding? Or was she?
At the Kauai Beach in Hawaii.
Did she specify a specific day in her request that they were wanting to get married?
November 5th, 2019.
Do you know if Chad and Lori were actually married?
They were.
And what day did they get married?
Tuesday, November 5th, 2019.
And do you know if they exchanged rings?
They did.
What type of rings did they exchange?
They appear to be malachite rings.
And Judge, I have that jump drive, State's Exhibit 185.
All right, we'll have that admitted into evidence.
Your Honor, I also have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 230. These are records, business records that contain a certification. I have a copy for counsel, the court, and the witness, and a courtesy copy for Your Honor as well, if we can show it to defense counsel. It's my understanding this was already stipulated to with having the business record certification.
All right, we'll take a moment and review those. These are your temple records.
And Ms. Heidemann, it looks like you're looking through those, but if you can just review those as well. And Your Honor, again, the state would move for those admissions, the admission of that exhibit based on stipulation.
Any objection as to admitting Exhibit 230?
Well, I'm just going to object to the completeness of it. This is not a complete record of what was sent or that what was received in this search warrant or subpoena.
All right, response to that, Ms. Blake?
Your Honor, if I may have just a moment.
Yes.
Judge, if we could maybe approach for a brief sidebar.
Yes. All right, on the sidebar, Ms. Blake, I understand there are some additional records that would be included with this particular exhibit, and the state's going to retrieve those at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. Well, we talked about that. I think it would be efficient for us to just keep, well, to do that at this time in lieu of trying to bring it back later at another point. So for that reason, then, the state indicates it's not going to take very long to do that, but it will take a few moments. So we'll take a brief recess at this time until those records have been located and provided, and then we'll come back on the record for additional direct. So we'll take a recess now for maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, please.
Thank you. We'll have the jurors brought in. You can just remain standing.
All right, please. Jurors all present, count for order.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record. Case CR 2221-1624, State of Idaho versus Lori Noreen Vallow. We just took a recess to sort out a particular exhibit. It appears that the additional pages have been submitted at this time. Ms. Blake, if you want to continue with offering that exhibit, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. And for the record, counsel was right. There were some missing parts to that exhibit. Those have been located and attached at this point. I had them attached to both the court's courtesy copy, the official copy, as well as have attached one to the exhibit for the witness, and defense counsel has provided those additional pages. So with those additional pages being attached to that exhibit, we would move for the admission of State's Exhibit 230.
Okay. Any objection now to admission of Exhibit 230?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Exhibit 230 will be admitted.
Ms. Heidemann, did you have a chance to look at Exhibit 230?
I did.
Do you recognize that as some documents that you had been asked to review as part of your role in this investigation?
Yes.
In reviewing those, did you end up putting together a PowerPoint presentation regarding what you observed in those records?
I did.
And is it something that you believe would aid you today in your testimony?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 185A. I have a copy for counsel. I just made 3 copies, but counsel, the court, and then if the witness can be shown one.
Yes.
And again, similar to the last exhibits, this is a printout of a PowerPoint presentation that is on a separate jump drive, also marked as State's Exhibit 185A.
All right. Thanks for that explanation.
And is that, in fact, a copy of the PowerPoint that was prepared by you?
It is.
And is it a summary of the documents that you reviewed?
It is.
Your Honor, I would ask for the admission of State's Exhibit 185A.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, and this particular objection, I think either we should do a sidebar or we should do it outside the presence of the jury.
All right. Let's discuss with the sidebar first and see where we go from there. All right, after sidebar, we'll be back on the record. The court had a discussion with counsel about this objection. Mr. Thomas, I've approved, I think it would be appropriate if you want to indicate your concern with this particular exhibit and make your objection in the presence of the jury, you may do so.
Thank you, Your Honor. The objection that we have is that the state is presuming that Tylee Ryan was killed on September the 8th or 9th and that JJ Vallow was presumably killed on September 22nd or 23rd, and that Tammy Daybell was killed on October 18th or 19th. We're objecting that to the reference of them saying that they've been killed. We don't believe that it's appropriate to have the jury assume these things, that these things need to be proved out, and we don't believe that they've been proved out as of yet.
All right, and in lieu of response at this time, I'll just note we did discuss this in a sidebar. The court considered that objection, and the way I'll rule on the objection is in terms of the admission of Exhibit 185A, I'll allow for it to be admitted, but clarifying that this is a demonstrative exhibit because certain indications in the exhibit that may be stated as fact have yet to be or have not been conclusively potentially proved at this point. So I think it's something that can be argued on both cross-examination and in your direct, Ms. Blake, but because of those dates there as they relate to the deaths, the court will admit that with a limiting instruction that this would be a demonstrative exhibit and not evidence of those facts as it's existing on this timeline.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Given that, the state would ask to publish Exhibit 185A.
You may publish it.
And with this, is this in fact the exhibit that you prepared?
It is.
Were you asked specifically to look at dates that Chad and Lori visited the temple together?
Yes.
And were you also asked to specifically look at dates they visited the temple together prior to being married?
I was.
In looking at this chart, were there specific dates that you located where they had in fact attended a temple together?
Yes.
And looking at those, can you indicate the dates that they attended temples together?
November 16th of 2018, they attended the Gilbert Temple together. On April 3rd, 2019, they attended the Idaho Falls Temple together. On April 27th, 2019, they attended the Houston Temple together. On September 7th, 2019, they attended the Idaho Falls Temple together. On September 17th, 2019, they attended the Rexburg Temple together, although that one had a more significant time difference than previous and subsequent visits. On September 28th, 2019, they attended the Rexburg Temple together, and on October 29th, 2019, they attended the Rexburg Temple together.
And when you talk about that September 17th visit and the time difference, what are you referencing there?
The temple records show when a member, I believe, scans a card and it tracks the date and time to the second, and all the previous and post September 17th, they're all within a minute, 2 minutes, and sometimes seconds of each other, which is why we're saying that they're attending together. The September 17th, 2019, there was a 25-minute time difference. So I just wanted to caveat that to make it clear.
And it was a 25-minute difference from between Chad or Lori scanning their card in?
Correct.
And the other visits, they scanned much closer in time together?
Within seconds to 2 minutes, probably, on average.
And looking at those first 3 dates, was Charles still alive at that time?
He was.
And do you know when Charles was killed?
On July 11th, 2019.
And then looking at those next 3 dates in September, do you know if Tammy was still alive during that time?
She was.
And for that first visit on September 7th, do you know if Tylee was still alive?
She was.
And was JJ still alive?
He was.
And there's a note there indicating on September 8th or 9th, Tylee Ryan was killed. Do you know the last time Tylee Ryan was seen alive?
Yes, she was our last proof of life of Tylee was on September 8th, 2019, based on photographs of her in Yellowstone, found on one of Lori's iCloud accounts.
So is that the presumptive date regarding when she was maybe killed?
Correct. I don't know the exact date or time.
And September 17th, was JJ still alive at that time?
He was.
Do you know the last time JJ was seen alive?
Well, we know that there is a photograph of JJ saved in one of Lori's iCloud accounts the morning of September 22nd.
And so when we have September 22nd to 23rd, JJ Vallow killed, is that the presumptive date?
Correct.
And you would gather this information and then turn it over to other investigators, is that correct?
Yes.
Then there are, and then there is also the indication there of Tammy being killed on October 18th or 19th. Do you know when she was pronounced dead?
October 19th, 2019.
And there are 2 things there in yellow regarding some attempted shootings. Did you learn that information through your investigation?
I did.
And so we have the October 2nd Brandon Boudreaux shooting. That was learned through the investigation?
It was.
And the October 9th attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
And so while these events were occurring, there were temple visits in between. Is that correct?
Yeah, there appeared to be, yes.
If I may have just one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Flake. Mr. Thomas, cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Agent Heidemann. Is it agent or special agent or
Tactical specialist. I'm not sworn.
Tactical specialist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
It's a new one I've never heard before. Okay. And so tactical specialist, basically, you've worked for the FBI for 15 years?
Yes, sir.
And you indicate that, you just indicated you're a tactical specialist. Before that, I believe you said you were an evidence technician?
Yes, sir.
What's the difference?
An evidence technician in the FBI, we were charged with maintaining custody and control of physical evidence brought into and out of the FBI.
Okay. And now your job is to analyze. You're more of an analyst?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's just start with some of these exhibits that the state has brought to your attention. Search activity of interest observed in Chad Daybell at Gmail. It's 184A. Can we have the 184A, please? Yeah, just hand it to the witness. That's fine.
Thank you.
So you recognize this because you're the one that drafted this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is indicative of Chad Daybell at gmail.com saying, Ned Schneider, 1996, Death, Louisiana.
I have a different
What do you have?
exhibit.
It's 184A, which was a 2-page PowerPoint.
Okay.
That's
Are
what
you
I
on
thought.
184A?
Yeah, 184A.
Okay. And it is a jump drive exhibit, so we've got courtesy copies in the jump drive.
Can I wrote on mine, so.
Mr. Bailiff, there's a courtesy copy the witness can look at. If you want to publish it again, you can, Mr. Thomas, or you can just refer to the courtesy copy that's provided to the witness.
All right, let's just let her, I'll just talk you through it if that's okay.
Okay.
So we're looking at Ned Schneider, 1996, Death, Louisiana, you understand?
Yes,
Okay, and that you said that was significant to you?
it was.
And when you researched that, what did you find out about Ned Schneider in 1996?
We just looked at the Google search history. That's, you mean research what he was searching?
Right.
I just looked at the Google search history and these situations.
You didn't look into what he was looking at?
I did not. No.
Is there any reason why you didn't do that?
No, I suppose not.
Okay. So what was so significant about Ned Schneider? Somebody told you that Ned Schneider, 1996, Death, Louisiana, was something significant?
The name Ned Schneider or Schneider was significant. The death dates or location was not quite as significant.
You didn't think that it was important to find out who this guy was?
No.
Okay. The next one, 131, 2019, Ned Schneider, Louisiana obituary, 1997.
Yes.
You didn't look into that either?
I did not.
In fact, you didn't look into any of these?
Other than maybe the Rhode Island area code to confirm that 401? No.
So your search was very narrow. Your task was very narrow, just to find things within these search histories, because these search histories are huge, right?
Yes.
And your job was to find things that might match up to things that the state could use to prosecute. Is that right?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. So you weren't tasked with the job of actually finding out what any of these meant or what significance that they drew. You were just tasked with finding names. That's it, right?
With finding information that had already been presented in previous reporting or interviews, things that had already happened in the case that we were aware of, and then they appeared also in the search history.
But you didn't dig into them any further than that. It was just a cursory search.
Correct, sir.
Okay. And the same thing with lollyforever@gmail.com, the next part of the exhibit?
Correct, sir.
You mentioned, let's see, where am I at? Evidence of wedding planning. This was another exhibit. This was States 185. Can we have the... And we're done with 184A. She can take that back.
All right, and again, this was a PowerPoint that was admitted as an exhibit, so I do have a courtesy copy that you can use for reference for
thanks,
the
Judge.
witness if you prefer.
You recall testifying about this particular exhibit?
I do.
And you made this PowerPoint up?
Yes.
Okay. So on page 2, or the second page of this, it talks about 2 documents discovered during Lori for Style at iCloud.com. 7 archangels and the presiding council of archangels. You wrote that?
Did I write it on the slide?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. And on the other side of the slide, you made reference to the Archangel Raphael and the fact that Tuesday was some sort of a significant day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
What was the significance of that?
Chad and Lori were married on a Tuesday.
And so you thought the fact that Chad and Lori were married on a Tuesday was a significant point because it said something about the Archangel Raphael on a Tuesday?
I think it was mostly of interest, the totality of the names and the Malachite and Tuesday all in one. I think on each on their own, probably not, but the totality of it was we thought of importance.
What other things happened on a Tuesday that were of significance?
Nothing that I can think of.
Did the kids die on a Tuesday?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at the dates.
Would it be surprising if I told you they died on a Monday?
Okay.
Would that be surprising to you?
No.
Okay. Did Tammy Daybell die on a Tuesday?
I don't believe so.
Would it be surprising if I told you she didn't?
No.
Okay. Were any of these searches that were done, were any of them done on a Tuesday?
Which searches, sir?
Any of the searches in 184A, the ones that we talked about?
I don't know.
Didn't check?
No.
It wasn't that significant?
Not in reference to the search dates, no.
The day of the week? Not significant?
It was not.
Okay. Thank you. As far as the malachite rings, these weren't special order rings, were they?
I don't. In what respect?
Well, they weren't manufactured for the purpose of this particular couple.
I don't know how they manufacture them. I believe the first attempted purchase on August 14th was likely a special order because the manufacturer stated he did not have time to fulfill the order. So, but I can't speak to whether the other ones are custom made by the manufacturer or if it's a Etsy company, if it's just that individual. I don't know how custom they are.
Okay, so you didn't really look into that?
I did not know.
Okay. So basically we have 2 malachite rings. You don't know if they're special order or if they were custom made, right?
I do not know that, no.
What we do know is that they were not the right size,
Correct.
apparently, right?
Chad's, correct, yes.
Chad's was not the right size?
Correct.
Okay. So what size ring does Chad wear?
Based on the last purchase, I would assume a 10, but I can't say for certain what size ring he wears.
So you don't know what size ring he wears?
I do not.
All right. And what about Lori? Do you know what size ring she wears?
I don't know for certain, but based on the ring purchases, I believe they were a 4.5.
Okay. So you don't know what size ring Lori wears?
I do not.
Do you know what size ring Alex Cox wears?
I do not.
Do you know what size ring Zulema Pastinez wears?
No.
Did you research any of that?
No.
Okay. Again, looking at State's Exhibit 185, the evidence of the wedding planning. Just get you to the right page here. 1, 2, 3. Page 9 would be a text from Chad to Lori on 7/13.
Okay.
So you said you had some significance with that. Would you argue with me if I told you that 7/13 was a Saturday?
No.
Was there any significance to that?
No.
The text message specifically says, concerning the 2 weeks, BYU Idaho graduation is July 23rd. Would it surprise you if I told you that was a Tuesday?
No.
Was that a significant day?
July 23rd, no.
So the second to the last page, the request for Lori to have a beach wedding on 11/5/2019 on a Tuesday, it's kind of lost its significance a little bit, don't you think?
I think with the totality of the previous stuff on its own, possibly, but showing the planning and their, I guess, sort of belief of themselves in these different names, and the significance of Tuesday to their name, and the significance of Malachite, I think totality, yes. As a standalone, not necessarily.
Okay. Let's turn to the temple records, Exhibit 230. Can we have that handed to the witness? And you can take back 185, please. The last 3 pages of Exhibit 230, those are all of the dates and times that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell had gone to the temple. Is that correct?
I don't actually have those pages, but I believe they were, yes.
Well, let's get those pages. 230 should look like this.
Yeah.
These are the last 3 pages. Do you have those last 3 pages?
I do.
And those are the actual attendance records of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell for their temple attendance, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And do you see what day these temple records start?
It appears that Lori Vallow's starts on October 5th, 2018.
Okay.
And Chad Daybell's start on October 10th, 2018.
Okay. And when's the last day that they have records for?
For Lori's, it is November 20th, 2019. And Chad's is November 20th, 2019.
Okay. And let's, in conjunction, I'd like you to also look at 185A. So I'd like her to have both of those at the same time, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So 185A is a chart that you you made up, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it shows that Chad and Lori had gone to the temple at approximately the same time on, looks like 7 different occasions. Is that right?
Yes.
And that would be during the time between all these records, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you research or find out or ask about anyone else who also went to any of these temple trips with Chad and Lori?
No, the records I were given just were for Chad and Lori.
Okay. So you don't know if they went in a group?
I do not.
You don't know if they went with each other or by themselves? They just showed up at the same time at the temple?
Yes.
All right. And as far as Chad and Lori's temple attendance, this is but a fraction of the times that they had actually gone to the temple, right?
Yes, sir.
A very small fraction?
Yes.
So what is the significance between 185A, which is your chart that indicates when they went to the temple, when these people were allegedly killed, and other significant events? What is the tie-in?
I believe that investigators, I don't want to say noticed a pattern, but saw that some of the temple visits occurred within a relatively short time frame to some of the homicides.
So the temple visit most closely to Charles Vallow's death was April 27th, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
It's about 3 months away. Is that a significant time?
That's up for interpretation, I suppose.
Well, I'm asking you to interpret. You did the chart.
Not as significant as some of the others now.
All right. So you're saying basically the fact that there was a temple attendance on September 7th would be significant because Tylee Ryan was supposedly killed on September the 8th.
Correct.
Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what the significance was?
Potentially.
Potentially?
Yes, I can't.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is why would you make a chart to show this evidence if you don't believe in it?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying and misstating.
I'll sustain that.
So, okay.
Ask another question.
Sure. So you're saying that there's some significance between Lori going to the temple and Chad going to the temple and the deaths of these people?
I don't know that I can testify that. We're just putting it in relation, in time frame relation. What they did at the temple or spoke about, I can't speak to. I can speak to the records that I was presented and how they interact with the timeline of the investigation.
And the way that you're portraying that is in a specific way of trying to show that these events and these temple visits were somehow connected.
Your Honor, objection. I think this is asked and answered, and again, counsel's testifying.
That I'll overrule that and ask that the question be, it was a question that I'll ask the court reporter, if you would, to restate that last question, please, with the objection overruled.
And the way that you're portraying that is in a specific way, trying to show that these events, these temple visits are somehow connected.
Is that correct?
I don't know that I can speak to that. Again, I'm portraying records and timelines. I can't say what the purpose of their visits were.
So that's a no.
Objection, Your Honor. I think counsel's
That was a question.
Well,
counsel. It's argumentative.
It is argumentative, so that's sustained.
Let's move to exhibit number 186, and I'm done with 185A and
I have this one.
whichever other one she has up there.
Thank you.
on 186, you indicate that each Chad, Lori, and Alex are attributable to having 3 phones. You say that those are significant. Is that right?
They had more than 3 phones, but they each had 3 during the relevant time frame that we thought were of importance.
All right. And is it
Were of importance. I'm sorry.
And is it out of the ordinary for somebody to have more than one phone number?
No, sir.
Okay. In fact, most people, if they have a business, they have a business phone and a personal phone, right?
Correct.
And maybe an extra phone, right?
Sure.
Okay. There was on Lori Vallow's phone numbers. There was a phone number associated with 808-755-5452.
Yes.
And you indicated on direct examination that this was subscribed to Premier Financial Services.
Correct.
Are you aware that Lori and Charles Vallow own that company together?
Probably at some time. I don't remember that off the top of my head, no.
So you didn't know that?
Maybe initially, but it did not come to me today.
Okay. Turning the page on Alex Cox's cell phone attributions, you indicated on 2 of the phone numbers, 304-960-5998 and 334-744-4204, that there were emails attached to gmail.com emails attached to those, and that those were only effective, let's just start with the first one, 304-960-5998. You indicate was effective between 9/27/2019 and 12/28/2019. Is that right?
Yes.
What do you mean by they were only effective during those dates?
That was the time frame provided by the provider as far as how long that phone number was associated with this particular account.
So how does that work? When somebody's phone number is attached to a Gmail account or another account?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So you're saying that the provider told you that rehmaximus@gmail.com was only effective between 9/27/2019 and 12/28/2019?
Oh, no, sir. The phone number 304-960-5998 was effective from September 27, 2019 through 12/28/2019. rehmaximus@gmail.com was another identifier on that account.
And so you're saying that the phone number was only active between 9/27/2019 and 12/28/2019?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That makes more sense. You talked a lot about some of the searches that were done, and trying to find that. So yeah, if I could just go back to 184A, if we could have the witness handed that. So if you look on the second page, the summary regarding Lolly Time Forever at Gmail, on 7/21/2019, talks about Gerber life policy, and then there's a semicolon. Was that all one? You put a lot of things in quotes, and then there's several things attached to each one. Were they separate and distinct searches, or were they all one search?
They were separate searches, or it was a search and then it would be a visit. So there was a visit to a site, or it could be multiple searches.
Okay. So when you say a visit to a site, that's when you type something in, you click on it, and then other things pop up in the background?
Correct.
And they lead you to that particular site?
Yes.
Okay. And can you differentiate which one was which on these on this particular exhibit?
On this exhibit, no.
How would you be able to do that?
I believe I have a full report that shows which, I'll have to double check which sites were visits and which were just searches.
Okay. And where is
go
that
back
report?
I don't know if it's in evidence or not.
So there's no way for you to tell us today whether or not these were searches or whether they were visits?
Each individual one, no, but they appeared in the search history. That's what I can testify to.
They appeared in the search history on that particular day?
Correct.
So they could have happened any time during a 24-hour period?
Correct. I didn't get into the minutes, no.
Okay. So the next one down, 7/26/2019, Phoenix Pet Services, Craigslist, self-service dog. You didn't research into or ask any questions about what that was specifically about?
I did not. However, my job is more to provide leads to investigators, and I know that those leads were ran out by other people, but not by myself, no.
Okay. If I could have just a second, Judge.
You may.
We're done with this witness.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Blake.
Ms. Heidemann, with regard to the Google searches, were you tasked with just looking at what was searched?
Yes.
And were you looking for information that appeared relevant to the investigation?
Yes.
And when you found that information, did you pass it on to other law enforcement officials?
I did.
And when you first began that search, had the children's bodies been located?
At the time I first reviewed it, no, it was still a missing persons investigation.
So specifically on that Wynn search, did that initially appear relevant to you?
No, not at first.
When did that appear relevant?
After the children's bodies were recovered.
And was that based on the location?
Of their
remains?
Yes.
You were asked if it would surprise you that the kids died on a Monday.
Correct.
Do you recall that question?
I do.
If I told you that September 8th was a Sunday and September 9th was a Monday, would that surprise you?
It would not.
Of 2019?
It would not.
And if I told you that September 22nd was a Sunday and September 23rd was a Monday in 2019, would that surprise you?
It would not.
With regard to the temple visits, were you looking for times that Chad and Lori were at the temple together?
I was.
You were not looking at times that they went separately?
No.
Was November 5th of 2019 a significant day?
Yes.
And what day of the week was that?
A Tuesday.
I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. I don't see any need for redirect after that, or recross. I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. So with that will conclude the testimony of this witness. Can the witness be released from any subpoena?
No, Your Honor. Ms. Heidemann will be recalled later.
Okay. With you being recalled then, Ms. Heidemann, I'll indicate again there is the exclusionary rule in place, so you're not allowed to observe any trial testimony in this case before you testify again. You can go ahead and be escorted off the seat there with the bailiff, and then once you've done that, I'll ask the state to call another witness. So thank you for your testimony.
That's the end of segment number 3. There is more to come. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our continuing coverage of the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.
This is continuous coverage
Continuous coverage. Continuous coverage.
in the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell from the Hidden Killers podcast.
Hidden Killers Podcast.